Hi, everybody. I think we're going to go ahead and get started here. Thanks for joining us today. We know you're all really busy, and we appreciate you taking the time out of your schedules to attend this webinar and learn what RKG deems to be some of the most critical paid search preparations for the holiday season. I'm Brad Costello. I'm a team lead here at RKG in the paid search department. I'm here along with my colleague Ben Hockestetler.
Hey, everyone.
The topics that we plan to cover today are what we think are the most important advertising elements that are necessary to ensure a successful Q4 for any retailer or other holiday-heavy advertiser. But this list is really in no means exhaustive. There are several other things that you can be doing to make sure that you're prepared, but we think that these are the most critical elements. As I'm sure most of you are aware, there are only 17 days left until Thanksgiving, so what we've included here are projects that we think are fairly easy to implement in that short time frame, but that should have a big impact on results for the holiday season. As we're going through the presentation, please feel free to write any questions that you have in the chat box. We'll collect all of those and then we'll address them all at the end.
So we kind of wanted to start off with just some background on why the next few weeks are so important to the holiday season, to paid search in general. So the numbers in front of you, 29% and 47%. These numbers are looking at last year's Q3 to Q4 changes, and we saw almost a 30% increase in clicks and a 47% increase in spend. Pretty significant growth rates from Q3 to Q4, and we can certainly expect that this year, and that's, I think, why we put together this webinar and why a lot of the things we're going to talk about are so important. One other thing that this tells us is spend is increasing at a greater rate than clicks, and so not only are we getting more traffic in Q4, but that traffic is more expensive, and CPCs are likely to increase. And so a lot of the projects that we have that we're going to get into below are best practices for paid search. A lot of them are things that you are likely already doing, and you're doing them on a regular basis, but because clicks and costs increase at such a high rate, we really wanted to kind of call out these important ones because they become that much more valuable in Q4. We also kind of wanted to lay out some expectations and some things that we are here at RKG planning for and kind of working with as a baseline going into Q4. First off, I'm sure this is not news to anyone, but there are 6 fewer days this year than there were last year between Thanksgiving and Christmas. To expand on that, Cyber Monday this year falls in December for the first time since 2008. And so if you're looking at year-over-year numbers and budgeting, you need to keep that into consideration so that you can properly attribute budgets and expectations going ahead. And also looking at mobile and PLAs. Obviously, both are growing at significant rates, and we want to make sure that we are putting enough attention and emphasis on those two segments in order to maximize the full potential of paid search. We also want to look at bidding and what we're doing there. So proactive bidding is something that we are strongly in favor of here at RKG, and making sure that we've looked ahead at expectations as well as looking back at last year's numbers to determine where bidding adjustments should be made. But we don't want to discount any intraday or intra-week adjustments too. You really want to look at what's going on a daily basis and respond to those behaviors to make sure that you are getting everything out of the program you can. So going ahead to further the expectations, obviously we just got into we just hit on the fact that there's less days in this holiday season. But another thing that we wanted to touch on is that Cyber Monday is more like Cyber Weekend. We have really seen a big user behavior shift over the last few years. Cyber Monday has traditionally been an online shopping day, but we've seen a lot of sales on Black Friday pick up over recent years, and even come into Thanksgiving. And we fully expect that to happen again this year, so making sure that we have planned properly for those days. We also want to pay special attention to Mondays. Mondays over the past, and we will touch on this later, but Mondays have traditionally had a significantly higher sales per click than a lot of the other days in the week, so making sure that we look ahead to that. And also look at the weekends for for strong in-store sales days. we want to make sure that we're playing our part online to help our brick and mortar locations so that they can get everything out of this holiday season by promoting in-store sales on our online copy. So getting past the expectations and actually now into some of the tactics and projects that we're recommending here for paid search strategies in the holidays. The first one we have is keywords. Keywords are obviously an integral part to paid search programs from the get-go, regardless of seasonality. Making sure that we have enough keyword coverage in the account is crucial to making sure that we can capture that traffic. And as we see at almost a 30% lift in clicks, making sure that we have total coverage going into it is going to ensure that that traffic gets maximized. So looking into some quick projects that we can do here with, as Brad said, 17 days left until Thanksgiving. Looking at 4 main projects that we can kind of highlight and focus on is a way to try to grab some traffic. The first one we have is looking at search query reports. This is a great way to fill in keyword gaps to make sure that we have everything possible launched so that we can set bids more accurately and capture that traffic that is there. Also looking at the Google opportunities. That's a great spot to try to see what Google is identifying as an area for growth for your account and is relatively quick to pull within AdWords. Launching top-performing keywords on exact match. So this is something that is not necessarily for volume, but rather for ROI. If you can launch on exact match, that helps you target to the user better, which means you can have a more granular bid set for that term, which ultimately helps get the most out of the program. And lastly, one that I think everyone in the industry is just starting to get a feel on, but something that we've seen as a great identifier of new opportunities is the paid and organic report that AdWords and Google released within the last couple months. For starters, you need to make sure that your AdWords and Webmaster Tools accounts are linked. But once that happens, data starts getting collected, and you can start to find opportunities where certain phrases or certain search terms are getting a lot of traffic organically to your site, but nothing in the paid site. It's an opportunity to try to find those incremental areas of growth to maximize potential. So another one we want to consider are negative keywords. Again, this is one that you're probably already doing, but having this done and optimized as we're going into the holidays is integral to having an optimized account. Negative keywords will help with the quality of traffic that you're getting, and which will ultimately help drive the ROI to be where you want it. And there's 2 main things that we focus on looking at. The first one is getting back to the search log analysis, and as opposed to finding positive keywords from that, find keywords that you don't. Find search terms you don't want to be serving on. Add those as new negatives. And the other one is running the negatives blocking positive script report that Google has in the UI. This is a good opportunity to find if you have negative keywords that are limiting your potential. And that's certainly something that we want to make sure we aren't doing here in Q4. We want to make sure that we have everything up and running and available to serve our ads on whenever there's an opportunity. And the last thing that we have in terms of keyword coverage is looking year over year to find top keywords that performed well in 2012. This is something that will be a theme throughout the rest of the deck that we put together, but focusing year over year numbers is one of the most important things that you can do to maximize your holiday potential. This is something that you can do throughout the year. It doesn't have to just be a holiday tactic here, but focusing on what did well last year. And really trying to find those keyword opportunities that may have been bid down to this point. A lot of keywords over the past 12 months may have been bid down because of seasonality or outright paused because a landing page a product is no longer in stock, or you just didn't feel it was right to advertise on. But finding these opportunities and raising their bids back to the first page or reactivating the keywords that are likely paused will help grab the volume that you could potentially miss out on. The one caveat to this is if you are increasing bids significantly for things that weren't on the first page or reactivating keywords that were paused, you want to take some time and make sure that you check all landing pages. if it were paused, it may have been paused for a reason, and that reason may be that it's out of stock. You want to make sure that as you're activating your keywords, that you're not sending users to broken pages, because ultimately that will kill the ROI and ultimately not work in your favor for the holidays.
So once you've got your keywords kind of squared away and you know the search terms that you want to be showing ads on, you really need to make sure that your ad copy is optimized so that users are seeing the most current and relevant ads. We can't really control how many times users search a particular term. So once your keywords are set, the best way to increase the number of site visits that you receive is to improve your click-through rate. You know, if you have a set number of impressions, you know really the only way to get more people to your site is by increasing the number of clicks through click-through rate. This also increases visits without increasing spend for each incremental visit, so you boost traffic without taking a hit on your CPCs. Lastly, this is an opportunity to show off the promotions that you have in this holiday season and any value propositions that make you a better choice than your competitors and show people why they should be shopping on your site. Good ad copy can potentially improve order volume as well. So when we're looking at how best to improve click-through rate in our ad copy, we first want to find any way that's going to tell users that this ad is the ad that they want to click on because it has what they're looking for at the best price. So making sure to include any promotions and discounts that you're running throughout the holiday season in the headline of the ad can really put a big boost on click-through rate. By having the promotion in the ad, it's really the first thing that people look at. It's sometimes the only thing they look at, and showing it right up front can get people to click on your ad first. Another opportunity is to test the use of the actual holiday in the ad copy. If you're running specific deals only on Cyber Monday or only on Black Friday, having those deals in the ad copy can let searchers know that you have a promotion that they're looking for on that particular day. The ad is relevant, and they're more likely to click on that ad and potentially more likely to purchase that day as well because they know from the ad copy that you're running a Cyber Monday only sale. And additionally, if you are a traditional retailer with the brick and mortar stores, you can use your ad copy to show off those in-store deals and also potentially to highlight the difference between your online and in-store promotions. So if you have a better deal online, you can show that in your ad copy and let people know if they're out and about and they're searching for stuff that maybe you can get more people to convert on mobile by using both versions of promotions in the ad copy. Another really easy way that we found to increase click-through rate and really show off the promotions that you do have is by making sure that you're showing any promotions in line 1 rather than line 2 of your ad copy. We did some testing last year, and we found that in this particular instance, there was a 45% increase in click-through rate just by running the same ad copy but having the promotion in line 1 versus line 2. There was a big lift in click-through rate, and this ad was the clear winner. The reason that this is, and it's why it's so important, is because if you have a short enough headline and a good promotion that also fits, Google will pull that line 1 up into the headline. So essentially you have kind of a super headline with your original headline plus the offer, and we see a lot better click-through rate there. It's just a much more relevant ad for the user and a better experience. What's important to note for this, though, is that you're only going to see these improvements and these benefits if your ads are in the promoted positions. So you've got to be in the top 3 spots on the page in order to get your line 1 pulled up into the headline. Additionally, we can use site links to show more information and use these site links to show all the promotions that you're running, any new categories, any other value propositions that your company might have can be included in site links and show the users more relevant information and really increase click-through rate. Another side benefit of this is that your ad takes up more position on the search page, and so you're just more likely to get clicked on. You want to make sure that these site links are kept up to date throughout the holiday period if you're updating your promotions or if you have new categories that you're adding or taking away. These are a great opportunity to show those categories or promotions on all of your ads, regardless of what the keywords that a user is searching for. Additionally, you can use the new Google Enhanced Site Links to show even more information about these promotions by adding 2 descriptive lines of text underneath each site link that shows the user even more information about that promotion. One more way to really improve click-through rate, take up more real estate on the page, and just give the user a better all-over experience is by making sure you're using all of the relevant ad extensions that you possibly can be. Why this is even more important this holiday season than it has been in the past is because Google recently changed their ad rank calculations that determine where exactly you're showing up on a search page and how much you're paying. It used to be that that calculation was strictly a combination of quality score and your bid, but Google recently changed that calculation, so it's now quality score, bid, and relevant ad extensions. So Google takes into account the ad extensions that you've got on your ads and layers that into how they're determining where you show up on the page. So if you have more extensions that Google deems to be relevant to your consumers, you're going to show higher on the page and you're going to pay less money for those clicks. So really it's a win-win here and something that we feel pretty strongly should be utilized to the best of your ability. Depending on your business, there are several different types of ad extensions that you can use. We've got location extensions, which are a great resource for people, again, with brick and mortar stores. You can have these on desktop ads or also on mobile ads as well to let people know when they're searching where your stores are. Seller ratings show that consumers have strong opinions about your business that are favorable. You've proven yourself to be a reliable retailer, and so that positively affects incremental searches. Call extensions are another great feature on mobile ads that can get people to call your call centers if necessary or call for more information. App extensions are also great on mobile, as well as social extensions show what other people are interested in. In the world that's becoming increasingly social, we've seen these have a pretty big payoff in terms of click-through rate as well. So once you've got all your ads put together and you know that they're in a place where you want them to be, you need to make sure that they're actually going to show up when people search for them. So the best way to do this is to make sure that you don't have any disapproved versions of ad copy in either the Bing or the Google user interface. In this instance, it's showing, if you were to click on that little speech box next to disapproved, this bubble pops up that tells you that your ad's not showing because your destination URL is not properly working. So it's really important to make sure that you find any of these instances and fix them, because if not, the ad that you came up with and that you're really happy about, that you think is going to show off all of your great value props and bring in a lot of holiday business, isn't going to show because it's disapproved because of that URL issue. So it's really important to make sure that you're in the UI checking your ads and making sure that everything you see is approved and that you've got click traffic on all your ads. This also really comes into play if you're changing ad copy specifically for like one-day promotions, such as Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Google and MSN have about a 12 to 24-hour approval window where once you set an ad live in the account, it takes a little while for them to make sure that that ad is follows their guidelines and is approved. So if it's a one-day sale, you could be not showing that ad for almost the entire day if you don't have it approved. So an easy way to work around this and get it fixed is to make sure that you load your ad copy prior to the sale when you need it run, but load it on pause and let it get approved. And then once you're ready, you can flip that copy to live and then ensure that it's showing on the search engine like you expect it to be.
So the next section that we're getting into here is campaign settings and making sure that we effectively review those settings that we have on both Google and Bing. We're putting all this work into ad copy and keywords, and we're going to get into bidding and some other miscellaneous tactics. And we really want to make sure that we're not going to limit ourselves because of some campaign settings that were forgotten about or that we didn't have set to the optimal level. We really want to make sure that we're maximizing the potential, and so this can include ad serving techniques and delivery methods and geo-targeting. A lot of different things go into this. One that we want to get to initially is talking about budgets. RKG doesn't necessarily recommending to manage your spend through budget settings, but we certainly all have budget caps in place to make sure that our spend doesn't get too out of whack, that it remains within a realm of our comfort level. We bring back this slide that was the very first one that I talked about to show the importance of the spend and the budgets that we're talking about here. Spend last year increased 47% from Q3 to Q4. If we have that same expectation for this year, that's a very large percentage of spend that will be increasing here into Q4. And so making sure that we have budgets set, that we reevaluate our budget caps so that we make sure that we aren't limited by budget. And understanding that this is a huge opportunity and something we need to make sure that we have effectively looked into so that we don't limit ourselves by having budget caps too low. The other thing that we want to get into that kind of goes with the budget settings is the ad serving settings. And so the two options we have here would be accelerated versus standard. We want to make sure that this is always set to accelerated, not just Q4, but throughout the year. And this is so that we guarantee that our ad will serve in every single instance in which we are eligible. In this case, you know, the tortoise and the hare, slow and steady won't win the race in Q4. We need to make sure that we're out running from the get-go and really working to maximize our potential. Another thing that we want, that we think is important to focus on are the day-of-week settings that we have in the account. Understanding that user behavior will shift, not just in the amount of the volume of searches that we're going to be getting, but in how users behave and when they're searching for things, on what days are they searching, and understanding that we need to really reevaluate what is currently active in our account so that we can make sure that we're maximizing the potential in this Q4. So in the example that we have here, current conversion rate data by day, you can see the beginning of the week really, for the sample that we looked at here, has a low conversion rate relative to the end of the week. But as we look ahead to Q4 and the expectations of what we're thinking, we see a big shift. We see Sunday and Monday, you know, basically have the opposite trend, and the second half of the week really have a declining conversion rate. We want to make sure that we are valuing these days appropriately, and this value will differ from every account. Every account is vastly different. So by no means are the numbers that, you know, the 8% on Sunday and the 13% on Monday, those conversion rates are by no means indicative of what you should expect, but rather we're just, you know, reiterating the importance of double checking and seeing where your performance should be. Another one to kind of go with the day of week is time of day. In the sample that we looked at from last year's holiday data throughout the holiday season, we saw that clicks peaked late in the day, in the evenings after people get home from work and start searching online. And that highlights the importance of our budget and campaign settings. And if we're limiting our spend by budget, we're not going to be here at the end of the day where traffic is at its highest. And understanding that those settings that we're putting into place are integral to maximizing the traffic that we get here. Now, with that said, that's not necessarily, this isn't a bidding strategy here at all. You know, this is just the traffic that's there and making sure that we're capturing that traffic through budgets and the campaign settings. We want to look at bidding strategies based on the conversion rates that we're seeing. And the value of those clicks don't necessarily follow the same path that we see as traffic rates. In this case, we see the peak conversion rates actually happen in the late morning and early afternoon times, as opposed to later in the day when we saw the volume increases. And as we're working to optimize ROI and make sure that we're getting the most out of our traffic, we want to emphasize that bidding to traffic is not the right way to go. That will lead to inefficiencies and ultimately valuing inappropriately the clicks that you're receiving. In fact, we want to look at, to maximize ROI, look at when conversion rate is at its highest and adjust bids accordingly to your own strategy in Q4, but understanding that that is the most optimal time to make changes to bidding.
And I think that brings us pretty nicely into our section about bidding strategies for the holiday. This section is what we think will have the biggest impact on maximizing your sales volume at efficiency. Being able to stay ahead of the changing landscape that we usually see during Q4 will allow you to hit your targets and make sure that all the other efforts you've been putting in are paying off. What's important to focus on here is that most of the slides we show in this section are utilizing year-over-year data. As we'll discuss, this year will look pretty different from previous years, but this still provides the most accurate predictions for what this year's performance will look like. The more year-over-year data that you can use, the clearer your picture is going to be of your performance that you can expect. So the first thing that we really want to look at is going all the way back to Ben's sections about making sure your top keywords from last year are reactivated and reevaluated. Well, if you're not on the first page for those keywords because maybe they've been bid down due to seasonality or what have you, you're not going to get clicks and you're not going to get any of the benefits from looking at those keywords. So in this instance, we see that the keyword is currently at a 46-cent bid, but it needs to be at least 55 cents to get on the first page. You can use Google's bid simulator data in order to estimate the increase in traffic that you're likely to see. So if you were to click on the little speech bubble next to the data that says below the first page bid, it gives you this, which shows where exactly you could expect to be, the number of clicks and impressions you'd receive had you changed your bid to something different. And this gives a pretty good indication of the traffic that you can expect to see if you change your bid over a time period. But it's important to remember that this data is actually looking at the last 7 days. And so what it's saying is that if you changed your bid from 46 cents up to, say, $1.13, that you would have probably gotten 20 clicks and 5,090 impressions during that time period. Why this is especially important now is because most of the year your traffic is going to be about the same week to week, where if you change the bid this week, you receive about 5,000 impressions. However, as we get into the holidays, we know that looking ahead into the future could be very different from the past week that we just saw. So it's really important to take that into consideration when using this data and know that if it's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and you're looking to get keywords on the top page, you're going to have to increase your bid a lot more than that $1.13 just to get up to 20 clicks. So this still gives the best indication of around where you should be adjusting, but everything needs to be reevaluated for that specific time frame. As we get into actually looking at when to adjust bids, we're again looking at year-over-year data because that's going to give us the clearest picture of what this season is going to look like. And in this instance, we have 5 years of data that we're looking at because all of this combined gives the best picture of what we can expect. If you look down at the line that represents 2008, it's really different looking from last year. But the reason that 2008 is so important is because that's the last year that the calendar looked that most closely resembled this year. However, there wasn't a big spike for Cyber Monday and Black Friday, and the biggest sales day that we did see was the last Monday before Christmas, which is Green Monday. The last Monday with 10 days between then and Christmas. However, Cyber Monday has become such a bigger part of holiday sales that really needs to be taken into account when looking at things. So you need to really combine all of this data to get the best estimate of what you can expect from this year's holiday season. We see a spike on the 2012 graph at that last Monday, which is the last Monday that people could order before Christmas, but we're not expecting to see a similar spike at that same time because with Christmas on Wednesday this year, most retailers can't get their packages out fast enough to ship before Christmas on that day, so we might see a similar spike, say on the last Friday or whatever that last shipping day is before Christmas. And when you're looking at these numbers and when you're trying to figure out what your bids need to be adjusted for, it's really important to take your own free shipping days and your own promotions and factor into how that's going to affect your expected sales per click throughout the entire month. And I say sales per click when talking about bidding because that's going to give you the best information on how you should be changing your bids. Where, again, as Ben mentioned, you're changing bids based on value of traffic, not necessarily the volume of traffic. So when you're looking back at your data, the way we calculate bids here at RKG is by taking a look at a period of time in the past to determine the expected sales per click return that we can get on a particular keyword and use that data to make a bid for today's time frame. Now, when we get closer and closer into the holidays, the difference between that bid window sales per click and the daily sales per click becomes a lot larger as we get closer and closer to Black Friday and then the shipping cutoff. We know that those days have a much higher expected return than the previous time period, so we have to adjust and make sure that our bidding system is adjusting and compensating for that. And then additionally, the other thing to really keep in mind is the time periods after Cyber Monday and then after the free shipping day, when you're going to see a large dip in expected sales per click, because people know that they should be purchasing on Cyber Monday and on the free shipping day, because that's the last day they can get their gifts before Christmas. But what's important to realize here is that that's not necessarily a decrease in traffic volume. We generally see on the Tuesday after Cyber Monday is still going to be a much larger volume Tuesday than after the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, but the expected sales per click is a lot different on that day than the average over the bid window. So when making your bid calculations, it's really important to keep all that in mind. Here at RKG, we do look at click date sales per click versus purchase date sales per click, which we think is really important because we want to know when the clicks that are happening, the value of those clicks, not necessarily the days when people purchase. When you're looking at this graph, you can see that the click date sales per click is a lot higher before Cyber Monday than the purchase date because people have really been trained to not actually make the purchase until Cyber Monday or Black Friday. They do a lot of their shopping beforehand. They check out the sales or check out the availability of products, but they wait until that actual day to do the shopping, excuse me. On the shipping days, you see a similar change between the click date and the purchase date sales per click because same principle where people are much more likely to purchase on that free shipping day because they know after that they're not getting the gifts that they're looking for. So again, looking at click date versus purchase date sales per click gives you a more accurate representation of the value of traffic versus the volume of traffic that you can expect. Another important aspect to consider when making bid changes throughout this quarter is what does the breakdown of your product selection look like. If you look on the left side of the graph, segment A here represents 12% of overall order volume at this time period. But as we get closer and closer to the holidays, that segment becomes such a larger percentage of overall orders. And so it's really important to find these segments and figure out how bidding needs to change when order volume is going to change so significantly for them. Again, though, it's really important to remember that you're not looking at volume, you're looking at value. And so if we look at this slide, segment A has a much higher sales per click than the average as we get closer to Christmas, which means that that category is more valuable and you should be willing to spend more money up front on your sales per click and your cost per click because you know that the conversion rate's higher and you're more likely to see that returned. Conversely, you need to find areas like segment B where that average sales per click is going to decrease throughout the holiday season, and by pulling back on those areas, you can save money to reinvest in areas that are going to have higher return and thus maximize sales at your efficiency goals.
So the next section that we're gonna talk about is some miscellaneous projects and segments that we want to focus on that necessarily didn't fit in any of the four above categories. By no means, though, does that make them less important. In fact, a lot of these are integral to having a successful holiday program. As we said, they just necessarily didn't fit in the above categories. So the first thing we want to talk about is Bing and the importance that Bing is playing in our paid search campaigns right now. So you can see here, this graph here is showing year-over-year click growth by engine, comparing Google and Bing. You can see that starting in Q4 of last year, a huge change from Bing's side in its year-over-year growth relative to Google. And that growth, that click growth year-over-year, has maintained through last quarter, and we fully expect that to maintain through Q4 of this year as well. One of the main reasons for this click growth is due to some algorithm changes that the Bing engineering team made to its broad matching capabilities. They started broad matching to more queries and ultimately has led to an increase in traffic for paid search advertisers. Now, the positive thing with this is that while we're seeing huge, substantial growth in volume, we haven't seen any decline, at least RKG hasn't seen any decline in the value of those clicks. So it's important to go ahead and look at your Bing account, make sure that you are maximizing the growth there. Do you have optimal keyword coverage that is equal to Google? Have you looked at landing pages? And making sure that you take some time now to make sure that account is optimized as you're heading into Q4. And kind of a good way that I look at this is right now Bing is roughly 20% of non-brand click share, with Google taking up the other 80%. And we want to make sure that we are not just looking at the 80% that Google owns from an optimization standpoint, but also paying attention to that 20%. A reference that's relevant to me, I'm a huge college basketball fan, so for those of you who are fans as well, that season's up and going, so pretty excited about that. But to bring a basketball reference into play here, if a coach only focuses on 4 of his ball players, so 80% of the team that's on the floor, and ignores that 5th ball player, the last 20%, he's not going to get the most out of that team, and ultimately that team will suffer. And I think I try to take that same mentality into Bing ads and making sure that we as advertisers focus on that segment and make sure that it gets the time that it needs in order to be optimized. There are a lot of people in the industry who don't take the time to optimize Bing, and so I think it's a huge competitive advantage if you can go in there and optimize the account and find the areas for growth and ultimately work to maximize those that can lead to a competitive advantage. Some of the things to focus on: testing, analyzing data, keyword coverage, ad extensions. And on the ad extensions, this is something I think that's hugely beneficial from a click-through rate perspective. Relatively recently, there's been the adoption of site links across the board. So making sure that you have those from taking up more real estate and adding more links for the user to click on your site. And then, getting back to how we can support brick and mortar locations, adding in your location extensions. And a lot of people have them for Google, and I know the rate is not the same. The adoption rate is not the same on Bing. And so, linking these up to make sure that you have called this out is truly important to making sure you get the most out of the paid search program. Another one that we really want to focus on, and I'm sure this is important to every retailer out there right now, is PLAs, and what are we doing with PLAs to maximize it? And there's a ton of work that can be done with PLAs. We have seen over the past 18 months the non-brand click share of Google for PLAs has increased from 15 to 35%, and that trend line looks like it is continuing to increase, and by no means are we expecting that to change. PLAs are becoming more important and becoming more valuable. So making sure that we've spent the time to optimize this segment of the account as well as the text ads, which we've been primarily focusing on up to this point in the webinar. So making sure that we have feed optimizations. That is probably the most integral optimization that you can make for PLAs. Making sure that we have all of your fields filled out and accurate, so that you're not going to have items disapproved because of the feed quality. You're making sure that that gets done first and foremost is very important. But then going further, looking at copy, and making sure that we have our promotional messaging in place, making sure that if you want to get some merchant promotions up there, that you work to get those in ahead of time so that Google can approve them and they can ultimately run to support other site promotions. And lastly, bidding. That is very important. Obviously, you want to take the time, whatever time you're spending to optimize your text ads, making sure that you're spending the same amount of time on bidding for PLAs. One thing that you can do this and that's needed is setting up targets, auto targets, so you can actually bid. There's a number of different ways to do this, and we have talked about this here, and RKG's belief is that there is no one single way to best manage your targets. You need to, for every single account, figure out what works best for you, whether that's brand targets, that's ID targets, that's a combination of multiple targets. Whatever works for you, that's something that you need to take the time and figure out. One thing that we can say, though, that we do think would be a good optimization going into the holidays is to focus on the ID targets, and in particular focusing on current top SKUs and building out specific targets for those items. And also going back to Q4, and again, getting back to the year-over-year data and utilizing what's there, not only looking to see what performed well from PLA clicks, but over your whole site and over your whole paid search program, what items were selling well last year, and creating ID targets centered around those products. That will help you get the most out of your PLA program. You can then set up specific promotional messaging around those targets, and you can set bids higher so that you can potentially serve more often and ultimately get more clicks from it. So there's a lot that can go into PLAs, but we feel firmly that this is the place where, with only 17 days left, obviously there's a lot of testing that goes into PLAs, but this will, we believe, will certainly help raise your the volume that you ultimately hope to get converted on.
So again, we brought up this slide again, but this time I really want to focus more on those pink dates on the calendar, because those are the top in-store dates that we've seen in the past. Those last couple weekends before Christmas and then Black Friday are really the top in-store days that we can expect to see throughout the year. And so, a lot of times we're asked, what can we do through paid search to increase the traffic that we're seeing in stores and to add value to our brick and mortar advertising opportunities. So there are really a couple things that we can do here, and everybody's really focused on mobile because of the huge increase it's seen in terms of traffic recently. It keeps growing as a percentage of overall searches. However, we're not seeing quite the same levels. The volume of search versus the volume of sales isn't really the same, and that's because a lot of these searches are resulting in in-store purchases and in-store visits. So we want to find ways in paid search to make sure that any mobile ads that we're running are adding value to the in-store programs. So one of the first ways that you can really do this is to make sure that you're utilizing any ad copy that you can, location extensions, call extensions, any other extensions within your mobile ads to make sure that you're bringing people on the go into your stores. There are a lot of different options for that mobile ad copy to let people know where your stores are at, the offers that are currently running in the stores, how to get there. All of that stuff helps drive people who are searching on their phones into the store, and that becomes more and more important as more people are searching on their phones and on those time periods when you have people in store, looking in store specifically. What's also important to note is that you can take all of these optimizations and you can target them specifically to people who are within a specified radius of your brick and mortar locations. So knowing to serve this particular version of mobile ad copy to a user who's within a 5-mile radius of the store is going to have a better result than just showing this all over the place if you're showing it to people who aren't in a reasonable distance of your store. Along the same vein, you can also change how much you're bidding based on a user's location in relation to your stores. So if you are changing your mobile bids because a person is within 1 mile of your store, maybe you deemed it necessary to increase that bid by 50% and by 25% if they're within 5 miles of your store. That can be done on mobile only, or it can also be done on desktop if you think that people who are close to your stores are likely to come in to shop when they're searching from home. Again, it's important to remember here that this needs to be adjusted and tailored to whatever your goals and your budgets are. So in these two instances, we've got 50 and 25%, but you need to know the value that you receive from an in-store visit and then how much you're willing and able to pay online to drive those in-store visits, because again, you need to know how many people who actually click on these ads are going to end up in store, and then how many of those people are actually going to convert, and that can help you determine exactly how much to bid additionally on these keywords. And then the last thing that we have on here is something that we think is really cool, and it's something that I'm actually pretty excited about, but it's something that's a really good tool to see the changing landscape of, what went on in your marketplace, but it doesn't give too much in terms of proactive adjustments that can be made. So this is Google Auction Insights data, and essentially what this is, and bear with me as I explain this because it's a little bit complicated and esoteric, but essentially that first line is you, the advertiser. And so the percentages there are the percentages of times that you did show when you were when your keyword was eligible to show. So if your keyword was holiday gifts, you showed 23% of the time that someone searched a keyword that was that or similar to that, and you could have received an impression. You got one 23% of the time. The competitor percentages are the number of times that the competitor served when you were eligible. So again, it's their impression share relative to your own ability. So what's important to look at here is to kind of see who's advertising when, and to be able to use that data to better describe some of the trends that you saw throughout a period. So say as you're looking back on all of your holiday performance in January, you had a great Q4, sales were good, you're really excited, but you did notice that you're paying a little bit higher in terms of CPCs than you were expecting throughout that time period on a particular set of keywords. So if you look at category 1, competitor 7 here, they really started to ramp up their spend probably to get more impressions and show up more often on the page. So you can use that to know that, okay, if we saw higher CPCs in December, it's because we had stiffer competition at that time period because competitor 7 was bidding heavier. Now, conversely, if you saw a particular category where the conversion rate really was a lot lower than you were expecting it to be, you could take a look at this data and you could see that competitor 6 here was really pushing hard, and they were showing a lot more than other advertisers. And so if you combine that with data that you have about your competitors and know that, so this particular competitor might have been running a special promotion or doing something else that made users more likely to click on their ad and convert on their site rather than yours, it can help to explain why the conversion rate you saw wasn't exactly what you were expecting or was different from what you thought it would be. And again, this data is important in terms of painting a better picture of what did happen, but it's difficult to use proactively unless you know exactly what your competitors are going to do in the coming months, which I don't know how many of us really have that information. But that does kind of wrap up the adjustments and recommendations that we have so far. So this brings us now into our Q&A section. So we've gotten a couple questions during the webinar that we'll address now. But if you still have questions or there's anything more you'd like to know, please type that into the chat box and we'll address those as well.
Yep, so what we're going to do here is I'll go ahead and read off the question as Brad said. We've had a few come in, so I'm going to go ahead and read off the question and then provide some answers for the ones that we can. So first question that we got was wanting to know more about the negative blocking keywords report and asking where it's available. So that report is available within the Google user interface. It's a very easy report to run, and it takes probably 2 seconds. It's just like running any other campaign report. And it can be found under the, I believe, the Opportunities tab. If I am incorrect there, I apologize, but it is relatively easy to run, but can be found in the Google UI.
Yep. So the next question that we got is about budget caps, and so this person was wondering, does Google recognize extremely high daily budgets as a means to push ads within those campaigns higher due to a willingness to spend more? And so
yeah. So the answer to that one would be no. Google will not raise your bids due to the budget caps being higher. The one thing that they will do, though, is within the budget limits, they will continue to serve your ads and until you have reached that budget. So do keep in mind that you don't want to put budgets too high, that you're not willing to spend the money. Google won't necessarily, as I said, they won't necessarily raise the bids, but they will serve the ads more often within that budget.
Mm-hmm.
And one more question there's a couple more that we have here. One of them is, with site link extensions where a retail paid search program has well over 100 campaigns, is there a best practice for site links other than managing the site links through a blanket universal strategy? Basically, the question, and this is a great question. It's where the value is added with all those different campaigns, and so should you have a tailored strategy to every single campaign, or should you have a different one? My opinion on this is that for your top categories, your top spending ones, and your top value ones in terms of a return standpoint, maybe tailor your site links to those campaigns. So maybe the top 10 or top 20, and take the other 80 or 90 and give them blanket ones, so that the majority of your paid search program gets tailored specific copy, and so you can focus on that, and then rather than spending time on campaign 100 where the value is going to be very low for taking the time to break out site links.
So the next question that we got is, how do I measure the results of increasing bids in PLAs since there's no average position? Be it impressions or click-through rate. Again, this is a really good question. It's difficult to know the impact that changing bids has on your PLAs, and so what's important to remember here is to focus on the difference you see in where your traffic's going. So if you change your auto targets or you change your bid, if you have additional auto targets and those start to see traffic, you have a pretty good indication of the impact that they've had. But if you're just changing bids on existing auto targets, taking a look at the difference in the composition of the PLA traffic that you're receiving can be a pretty good indicator of how well this is working. If you saw one category previously was a pretty small percentage, but you started bidding it up, and now it's a much higher percentage of the click volume that you're seeing in PLAs, you have a good indication of the effect that bid change had, and then can combine that with any data that you have on conversions to know if you're bidding at an appropriate level for that particular auto target now.
So moving on to another question here. In regards to the days that are top in-store shopping days, as we showed with Fridays and Saturdays, if the paid search campaign is strictly ROI based, and so not so much on looking at the value of traffic that you're pushing to a retail store location, what should a program like that do to make sure that you are pushing foot traffic while not getting sidetracked from the program goals? That's a great question. I think this is one that I would say is still debated for every single account team, trying to figure out what the best method of valuing the traffic is going to be. I think ultimately down the road we may be able to have visibility into tracking online to store visits. Unfortunately, we're not there right now. My opinion on this is that it all depends on your own business. It depends on the value of those brick and mortar locations and the value that you're seeing from a paid search side in that store location. One thing that you could do is if you wanted to spend, hypothetically here, $100 a day on a mobile strategy around that brick and mortar, or even around your desktop promoting certain copy or certain site links maybe that you're trying to drive people to the store location, and understanding that the money you're spending there is for that purpose, and maybe trying to compensate elsewhere in the campaign to make up for that $100 a day so that you can still achieve your stated ROI goals while driving some traffic to the brick and mortar locations. As I said, this is a tough one, and ultimately I think the decision has to be with you as the owner of the business, and knowing what is best suited for your account. along with the goals that you are striving to achieve. Ultimately, that's the goal. It is to get the most out of your program, and in this case, I'm not sure right now that there would be a best practice for that across the board.
Yeah, and so to expand on that just a little bit, I think we all know that mobile searches are driving people in store, and so there is a return there. It's just very difficult to measure what that exact return is. We're actually testing methods here at RKG to determine what percentage of people that are clicking on mobile ads are actually going into stores and purchasing, and that's still, something really new, and so we don't have a ton of data to share about exactly the percentages we can expect to see, but I think that you don't want to leave all of that mobile opportunity out just because you can't specifically track it. So you have to find a way to track what the value is of your mobile search, give that a value, and then determine what your ROI goal is based off of that. Because you don't want to not advertise on mobile just because you can't measure it as directly because you're missing out on a lot of opportunity. But I understand at the same time that you don't have a set exact return that you're seeing each day come in. So it's difficult. Again, as Ben said, that needs to be tailored a little bit to each individual business.
So there's one more question on here, just mentioning, asking about remarketing and what the focus on that should be, whether we are bidding CPM or CPC. To be very honest, we don't do it specifically. Brad and I, we're on the paid search team, so there's not a whole lot of direct work that we have with remarketing. I think a lot of that would have to do on, is your focus on impressions, or is your focus on clicks? And that will certainly vary from advertiser to advertiser, and also vary from, even if you're talking branding, or you're talking, is it remarketing from branding, or is it remarketing to try to get someone to convert? So I think ultimately, again, this is one that it's a difficult one for me to answer personally. I'm not trying to skirt around the answer by any means.
And within that same vein, we do want to make sure we touch on RLSAs as well. The remarketing list for search ads. That's an opportunity within paid search to make sure that you're marketing to people who have, been to the site, potentially filled out a cart, something along those lines. There are several different strategies there, and depending on the site volume you can expect, the audience sizes, and how the adjustments that you can make, those can be tailored specifically to bid a lot higher for people on Cyber Monday who have been to the site in the last several days but have not purchased, and we can get those people to come back and purchase on that day because we know that the value prop that day is higher and we're more likely to have a higher conversion rate. I did want to touch on, a couple people have asked if the deck is going to be shared afterwards, and it definitely will be. We'll follow up with all the attendees on where that's located. But I do think that this is about the time that we've got to call it. Thank you all so much for your time. We really appreciate it. If you do have other questions, there are several resources that hopefully can answer any of those, but feel free to reach out and contact us if there's anything that you'd like to know about that we didn't touch on here.
Yep. Thank you all for taking the time. Happy holidays and good luck. Good luck through the holiday season.